Canada was a very stable, middle-class country with reliable institutions. To say that's gone is to say almost nothing.
Canada. Under Justin Trudeau, the former British colony has sought to position itself as the global bastion of progressive politics.
We have become a totalitarian state.
As his cultural revolution shows no sign of abating, I went to Canada to find out how ordinary Canadians are dealing with Trudeau's radical reforms.
The sexualization has become militarized.
From the promotion of gender ideology
What the is that?
Do you want to talk about it?
to the legalization of drugs,
Overdoses are up, violent crime is up. It's a jungle.
radical new suicide laws,
Do you think that they want you dead?
Yes. I think it's wrong.
and clampdowns on freedom of speech.
I think our leader, Trudeau, I don't think I've ever heard him say a true word. All this nonsense about compassion is the manipulations of snakes pulling in the useful idiots who perhaps are genuinely compassionate, and that's Canada.
My name is Stephen Edgington, and I'm a journalist from the Telegraph. I began my investigation of Canada in one of the country's most liberal cities, Vancouver.
So we're here on Vancouver's downtown east side, where the situation, whether it's open drug use or violent crime, just continues to get worse. And every day,
Possession of hard drugs, including heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl, has been legalized in the city. To find out the impact of these new laws,
Aaron.
I met up with Aaron Gunn, a filmmaker who has documented a rise in homelessness and crime in Canada in recent years.
Aaron, tell us a bit about what you do here.
what I do here, well, I just came off filming two documentaries in the downtown east side of Vancouver, documenting the incredible increases in homelessness, kind of just general societal chaos, and the explosion of open drug use here on the streets of Vancouver and really on the streets of every major Canadian city.
What's going on in Vancouver then?
We've seen the street order explode. We've seen open drug use explode. Overdose deaths are up more than 1,000% in the past 10 years. Here in British Columbia, the province where Vancouver is, we saw more than 2,000 British Columbians die last year from overdoses alone. Every day in Vancouver, 4 people are randomly attacked.
Who is to blame for this chaos in Vancouver?
Well, what I was told when I was making the documentary by one small business owner is you get what you tolerate. Would you like to add something? Why is that? Making a documentary?
Yeah. But the thing is, how can you talk when you haven't seen one day of struggle in your whole life? You haven't gone through one day of struggle. Yeah, walk up and down these. Just because you want to make some money. Yeah.
I'm not making money off this. I'm not even. This isn't even my documentary.
You're looking down.
Thanks.
Bye.
Right, let's move. Let's go. So we were just filming on a corner near Hastings Street, which is where some of the worst homelessness is, and a lot of people came up to you. They seem to know who you are. Can you kind of explain what happened?
Yeah, we didn't get very far through the interview, did we? Yeah, it was just, we haven't been back here since Canada's dying blew up. Whenever somebody suggests, for example, that handing out more hard drugs or destigmatizing drugs like fentanyl and crystal meth might actually be making the problem worse. I don't think that's a radical position to take. It was pretty much a consensus up until 5 minutes ago, and now when you put a documentary out about it, you put a lot of people up against the wall, and I think that's what we saw.
These issues are impacting many cities around the world, San Francisco being one of them, Portland in the United States. What is it about Canada specifically that has caused this huge rise in homelessness and crime?
There's nowhere in the world, as far as I know, that has engaged in this level of permissiveness when it comes to these dangerous addictive substances like fentanyl and crystal meth. And I think there is the root of the problem. If you could snap your fingers and get rid of these drugs tomorrow, you would solve 80% of these problems.
Another filmmaker who explores the streets of Vancouver is Chris Elston, better known online as Billboard Chris. Chris agreed that I could join him on one of his outings in the city.
My whole goal is to start conversations. It's to have conversations and start conversations. So that was really effective. So I had some signs made. I I had 2 signs made. They said gender ideology does not belong in schools. And when you talk about this, all hell breaks loose.
Gender ideology, what the is that?
Do you want to talk about it?
I'm queer, I'm 78, and I've always been queer.
Okay, what does that mean to be queer?
I like men, I've always liked men.
Well, I'm a gay man, I'm not queer.
Well, I
like men, I'm not queer.
Well, the word thing, idiot. It's just a word. I identify as queer.
Okay.
If he's closed mind to accept some other word, okay, I'm gay. I just wanted you to know, I've known, once I came out, I realized that I've always liked guys.
Okay, can I have a conversation with you for a sec?
You have to read the sign. You
cannot
read it? I can't read it. Doesn't say anything.
Okay, let's just slow down for a minute. Can I have a conversation with you for a sec?
No, because I got a doctor's appointment, I got to go.
Okay, I support the gay community 100%.
Okay.
You don't.
We shouldn't be giving...
I'm gay. I'm gay and I support
Okay, you are gay.
I support this. I support this.
I don't support child abuse.
I don't support child abuse.
That's right.
I'm gay, and you know, when I was young, I was a feminine fake kid. You know, if I was a gay, feminine kid today, they would have whipped out the old dick saw, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They would have taken my manhood.
Yeah, these kids who would grow up to be gay today are being taught that just because they're effeminate little boys that they must be trans.
This is also about the erasing of gay men and lesbians.
If a boy's effeminate, if a girl's masculine, beautiful.
Right.
What's wrong with that?
Right.
I don't know what happened to the Western world. I haven't lived in Canada for 30 years, but it has changed. Man, 30 years ago, this would be unconceivable. I don't like even coming back to the West, you know. I don't recognize it anymore, you know. You're the man.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you. Canadians don't want to be on camera if they're supporting this. It's pretty rare.
Why?
Because they might get in trouble at their job. They're not all afraid, and we'll run into them if we stay here long enough. But if people have any sort of corporate job or work for the government, they don't want to be on camera. They're going to get in trouble.
Are you worried about talking about this sort of thing because of your job and things like that?
Yes.
What happens if you say the wrong thing? What could happen to you?
There's ostracism, a lot of ridicule and mockery. I've worked at other places with evangelical Christians, etc., who have stood up for their faith, and the ridicule begins. I'm technically a leftist, but the way everything's slid sideways now, people say, well, you're a conservative.
I really like your videos.
Thank you, sir.
I believe in what you say. Everyone goes through different things at different stages in life, and people are just jumping to conclusions instead of just letting it happen as it is. When kids go through puberty, they usually figure it out. Right. Like my mother, she's a lady, full biological female, and when she was younger, she didn't like doing the girl things. But she's always said that make her a boy in girls' clothes.
So you're touching on what this entire ideology is based on. It's based on one thing only: stereotypes.
Yeah.
That if you don't conform to stereotypes, that maybe you're not the sex that you are. What utter nonsense. This is the most regressive ideology in history.
So what do you think of Chris then?
I think he's doing some work that people need to be informed. My brother liked to hang out with the neighbor, who was the girl, and she had Barbies, and all you ever do was go over there and play with Barbies. Well, in today's society, shit. My parents would have had to mutilate him. Otherwise, they would have been taken away.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To find out more about the consequences of questioning gender ideology in Canada, I met up with Amy Ham, a nurse based in British Columbia.
Why don't you tell me a bit about yourself?
So I'm a registered nurse by profession, and I also do some freelance writing and journalism. And I'm a single mom with 2 boys. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old son. And I guess in the past 6, maybe 7 years, I started writing and talking about gender ideology. I'm fighting to maintain my nursing license.
So what sparked this all off? Why did this all start?
The 2 members of the public who complained to my regulatory body were incensed by my involvement in putting up an I Heart J.K. Rowling billboard. This billboard got a lot of attention in Vancouver that has a huge population of very hyper woke, kind of lefty people, and that triggered an investigation.
Canadians are known as the world's politest people. Do you think that that's a misconception in terms of how you've been treated by some Canadians?
Yeah, I don't think Canadians are necessarily polite. Maybe it's more passive aggressive, could be the right word. And If you hear psychologists talk about the way that some people deal with disagreement, it can be like physical aggression, or you can do more psychological things like reputational destruction and trying to destroy someone that way. And I think as a country, it's almost as if Canadians have chosen to do that. That's what cancel culture feels like here.
The promotion of transgenderism in Canadian schools has led to a fierce backlash from some parents, not least those who come from Canada's ethnic minority communities. Multiculturalism has become a key pillar of Justin Trudeau's vision of Canadian identity. In Toronto, I caught up with a family originally from India to discuss their experiences of modern Canada.
Hello.
Hello.
Come on in then.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Stephen.
Stephen. You're already shooting?
We're already shooting.
Bang, bang.
Should we go upstairs?
Mom. This is Stephen. Stephen. My mom.
Hey Mom, how's it going? So tell me your background. When did you move to Canada?
I'm Indian. I came from India after marriage. Came to Canada in 1974, July.
When you came to Canada, what was it like and how has it changed in terms of multiculturalism?
Racism was there. They're not happy that other colors are coming. So they were throwing eggs and calling them names. Many things were happening. But still that gone very soon. After 1980, it started improving. Now, so many taxes, they are increasing. It looks like that 50-50. 50 government is taking from us and we have only 50. That's not fair. And before we were happy, like living like middle families.
Justin Trudeau says that he represents people like you. He says that he loves multiculturalism. He loves the fact that Canada is so multicultural, so many different people from different societies. Do you think that he takes your vote for granted?
Yeah, definitely. He took our work granted, and he is saying multicultural. He loves multicultural. We love multicultural too. I think every human like it. But bringing from every country and not seeing their back record, so many criminals can come too, and crime gonna go very high. So there should be some standard to bring people.
So Niranjan, why don't you tell me a bit about your background as well?
So I was born here a year after my mother arrived. I was born and raised 70s, 80s kid. Growing up in an 80s, 90s Canada where I was privy to multiculturalism in a very organic way. It wasn't some United Color of Benetton commercial. This was full on, everyone taking the piss and laughing at everyone else, making fun of accents. We all got to tease one another, playing street hockey with our ridiculously curved sticks.
But to use their language, you are a diverse individual, and they would expect you to have a certain set of beliefs that come along with that.
100%.
But you don't.
Absolutely not. Because I'm not stupid. It's very transparent. I work in a community that is all about the hustle. Sex workers, drug sellers, pimps, everyone's hustling to make it. I am used to being around people lying all the time. So when such a big hustle is being thrown in my face, I've been around it for, like I said, almost 15 years now. It's so obvious. I'm just like, that's just a hustle. That's not even a good hustle.
You've got a son, grandson, and you've experienced the gender ideology being pushed on your child. Can you tell us what happened?
My son goes to an alternative school within the Toronto District School Board, which his focus is on the arts and social justice. In the last few years, the sexualization has become militarized. It has gone full, no pun intended, balls to the wall. They're full on aggressively ramming it down, no pun intended, everyone's throats. It's a Wednesday at around 6 p.m. I get an email that says, tomorrow is Gender Odyssey. Please bring your kids to school with the other opposite gender's clothing. We're going to have a fashion show. The teachers are going to dress in the opposite gender clothing. We're going to have a presentation for the kids. Again, we're talking kids from grade 4, kids from the ages of 4 all the way up to 11, 12. And I was like, what They ask me and send me emails and forms to sign when he's crossing the street to go to the, for a field walking trip. And yet they're going to start teaching my son about sexuality, other genders, and God knows what other aspects of sexuality they're going to bring into it without my permission, and that I'm supposed to send him to school with girls' clothing so that he can dress up as a girl and then have a fashion show with all this happening. I was like, no, that's not going to happen. And that's the other thing. At school, they always have the cultural month. So when it's the South Asian month, they've combined us with, so it's just Asia month. And so me and the East Asians and the parents who are, they want us to come in, they want us to cook the stereotypical Indian and Chinese food. They want us to come and talk about Indian culture, sports and languages and things like that. There's a double-edged sword. We're like, we want your food, we want the kitchen, the camp, and we want everything. We want the image of what your culture is to come in and then leave. But don't bring your actual fundamental beliefs about God, spirituality, and generational responsibility. Don't bring any of that. We don't want that.
Do you think that Canada is a warning for what can happen if things go so bad?
Canada is an experimental ground, for sure, right? It just as much as Australia is. I think these are both and New Zealand as well. These are great places that don't have the amount of tradition, and it's not close to home. Like, if England's gonna fall, these extremities are gonna fall first.